Clemmons, Doctor of Chiropractic at the Rock Health and Wellness Center, and this is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. This is Tuesday, March the 19th, and we are live, like always, right here in Lubbock, Texas at the Rock Health and Wellness Center studios and on 98.7 Walk by Faith Radio and 1420 AM Lubbock Christian Nation. I'm excited about this show tonight, and I know I know sometimes when I get too excited about these shows, I mess them all up. So I'm trying to calm myself down a little bit and keep my brain working so that I can kind of explain what's going on tonight, because I'm super excited about this show because of the depth of it. We touched it a little bit last night. We're going to talk about basically some teachings and a conversation between Dr. Huberman at Huberman Labs and Dr. Charles Zucker. And he is Dr. Zucker is a professor of biochemistry, molecular biophysics, and neuroscience at Columbia University, and is an investigator at the Howard Hughes Medical Institute. Super smart guy. His lab has discovered lots of things about taste, about smell, about the way that your brain works. And I've just been fascinated with some of the information that I've learned, because it just is a combination of all the things that we've done together with that we have with Dr. Peterson that I started with, and then Dr. McGilchrist in the Master and His Emissary book, and then it just maps itself. It just everything starts to stack again, like we always talk about, and it moves us right into these things. And I'm just super excited to talk about it tonight. So that's what the show's about. If you guys want to stick around and listen to it, or come back to it. If you're on social media, you can come back and catch it later. But I really do think it's going to be it's going to blow your mind, some of this stuff. So it blows my mind, and it's just amazing, some of the stuff that you get to study. And I'm so thankful every single day that I get to be in wellness. I get to be I get to work in wellness. I get to operate in wellness. I got to learn wellness, and the more and more I get to learn about it, how it's right up the alley of chiropractic. And tonight is going to be one of those nights that maybe we'll be able to get through it and make some sense out of it. And so that's what we're talking about. We've been starting these last week or so. We've been talking about, to start the show, just been talking about some supplements that you guys might be interested in, that and maybe wanting to know a little bit about them and what they're about and what they're used for and why you would take them. And tonight we're going to talk about Catalin, and we've talked about this in previous shows, but Catalin is our multivitamin. It's the standard process multivitamin, and I'll read it right here, just a little bit about it. Catalin, Dr. Royal Lee's first product, supplies multiple vitamins. It contains antioxidants and vital nutrients from whole foods and other sources. Supplies multiple vitamins for complex nutritional supplementation. Designs to help bridge nutritional gaps in the diet. Encourages healthy cell function. Supports overall well-being. Excellent source of vitamin D, vitamin B6, and antioxidant, vitamin C, and is a good source of thiamine and riboflavin. So one of the things that I learned when I started studying on supplements and about is what a whole food is, and synergy of foods, right? And so, like, if you eat an apple, you eat an apple, and you're going to get all kinds of nutrients from that apple, and you're going to get vitamin C as one example from eating an apple. And I don't really know. I could probably look at it right quick and see how much vitamin C is in an apple if I can type. An apple provides roughly 10% of your daily recommended allowance for vitamin C. A raw apple weighing 138 grams with skin provides 6.3 milligrams of vitamin C. So you might say to yourself, like, well, 6.3 milligrams of vitamin C is not a lot of vitamin C. Like, I'm usually taking 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C in a day, right? That's true. When you break a supplement down by its component parts, you lose the synergy of the supplement. It doesn't mean that there's not some benefit from taking that, but what it does mean is that the way nature put it together, the way God put it together, and the way nature grew it, that's there's just something that is synergistically beneficial from the apple that you can't get in some sort of individual supplement, right? It's just made together with other things in it, and it's just put together in a way that eating whole foods and eating healthy foods are going to give you better things. Now, we've talked about that in the past, but that's one of the things about that Dr. Royal Lee got in trouble for. Royal Lee is he's the founder of Standard Process, and he was, I don't even know what his title was, a chemist or something like that, but he was super interested in how all these things fit together. And when he first created Catalin, the story that I got told is when he first created Catalin, he didn't have any vitamins in it, because what it is, it's a proprietary blend of defatted wheat germ, calcium lactate, organic carrots, organic sweet potatoes, nutritional yeast, bovine adrenal, bovine liver, magnesium citrate, bovine spleen, ovine spleen, bovine kidney, um, organic pea vine juice powder, organic alfalfa juice powder, organic oat flour, sunflower lecithin, organic shiitake mushroom powder, organic reishi mushroom powder, and rice bran. Yeah. So he was trying to create the synergy of things and put those foods together and then give you the whole food of it. Well, the FDA or whoever it was back in the day that he created that, they came at him and said, no, you can't do that. Um, you can't call it a multivitamin if you don't have multiple vitamins in it. And he was like, are you kidding me? I got all kinds of vitamins in it. But you can't call an apple a multivitamin either, even though you've got multiple vitamins in an apple, right? But it doesn't mean that an apple's not good for you. Just can't, according to the government, you can't call it a multivitamin. So what he had to do is he had to come back in here and put some vitamins in here. So he put vitamin A, he put vitamin C, vitamin D, thiamine, riboflavin, and vitamin B6. But when you look at like vitamin C right here, there's 4 milligrams. There's 4 milligrams in the Catalin. And sometimes I have patients look at it and say, well, doc, that doesn't even make any sense, because it's like, it's only got 4 milligrams of vitamin C. There's like I've got this multivitamin that we've created, or that is just for people that are like here's a whole list of them right here, and right here we've got 50 milligrams of vitamin C in this women's ultra right here, multivitamin. Well, the one that creates, and it's two different standards, right? It's two different things. So we've got some for you if you want a place to get vitamins, and you can get some vitamins, our brand of vitamins that are right here, and we can control costs for people who need to control costs and that sort of thing. But if you're going to go to Walmart and buy some supplements, you can get them just as easy right here at the Rock if you wanted them. But the Catalin is not going to be the same. So the Catalin is synergy, and that's what we use, and that's why I love it, and that's why I've been taking Catalin for years. That's our multivitamin. So I wanted to go over that with you. That's the one. If you're looking for a multivitamin, you're looking for a good one for you and your family. This is Standard Process has been changing lives since 1929. They have a 900-acre farm that's in Wisconsin. It's an organic farm. It's been in the family for I don't know, almost 100 years now. They've never used pesticides or any of that stuff in it. All this stuff is good, solid stuff. And so that's why I use it, and I'm a big fan of it. If you want some of it, you don't want to come to my office, you want some Catalin, you can go to therock.standardprocess.com, and you can get it right there, and you can just have it shipped straight to your house. So you don't even have to call me on the Catalin. It's good stuff. All right. The other thing, just one more time, we talked about it a little bit in the last couple of days, but I wanted to show you this RX Omega Ultra Strength. That's one of the main fish oils that we use. And on the box of fish oil, what we look for is DHA and EPA. And for all you guys that ask, because I get new patients all the time that are new to the show, They come in, they're new patients. We tell them about the show. They come join the show and watch it, and they're like, okay, I don't know what you're talking about with some of this stuff. And so that's what I want to tell you. When you look at a bottle of fish oil, look up at it. The two things you want to know is EPA and DHA. DHA in this particular bottle is 670 milligrams. But go up to the serving size and it says 2 soft gels. So you have to divide that in half so you can get to figure out each pill what you're getting. And if you and the EPA in this is 1360. So it's a little bit more than a 2 to, just slightly more than a 2-to-1 ratio, but it's pretty close to that 2-to-1 ratio right here. When they made this the super strength, it's so funny what Nacho Factors did. They made this RX Omega 3 Ultra Strength, and they changed the serving size from 1 soft gel to 2 soft gels. So yeah, now it's super strength because it's twice as much. That's crazy. But they changed it just slightly because it was a clear 2-to-1 ratio of EPA to DHA, and they did make it change just a little bit, and now it's just a slight bit more, 20 milligrams more of EPA on, but you get 1,360 milligrams. And so what you would do is you would divide that in half, and so whatever that is, 780 milligrams, 680 milligrams per pill, and 335 milligrams of the DHA per pill. And we want the DHA to be 1,000. So we'd have to multiply the 335, divide 1,000 by 335, and you have to have 3 pills, and that gets you over your 1,000 limit. So that's what we would do. We would take 3 of these pills per day. That's your baseline of omega-3. So if you're looking at home and you've got a bottle of fish oil and you want to know about how to do that, just look on your bottle of fish oil. First of all, is the DHA half as much as the EPA? That's what you're looking for. That's one of the things. For kids, it's different. For kids, flip that over. Kids, you want a higher DHA count because they've got more brain synapses being built, and it's more important to the brain. But in adults, you want it that way. And then just look it up and see how many. Just figure out how many pills is your serving size. 1 soft gel, 2 soft gels, 3 soft gels, whatever it is. Figure out how much DHA you have per pill by dividing it, and then divide that number into 1,000, and that gives you how much DHA. Sometimes you have to take 10 pills, and that's why the cheap stuff that you buy at places that don't care about health, that's what you end up with right there. So that is the one we use. You can get it anywhere, really. If you're in Lubbock, you can get it all over town. So I'm sure you can get it wherever town you're in. You can get it there as well. So those are the 2 things I wanted to talk about before we got started with this. Okay, so here's my attempt to break this down and talk about this video. If you guys haven't seen it and you want to go to YouTube, you can watch it. Just go to Huberman Labs and listen, or just search it, Huberman and Charles Zucker, and you can search it, and it'll break it down to you. And they have a conversation. It's pretty easy to follow. Dr. Zucker's from Chile, and so he's got an accent, but he talks super slow, and he makes it very clear, and he doesn't use a lot of big, complicated words. So, but the conversation between the 2 of them are great. I'm going to take it, and it's going to be kind of like a book review night. I'm going to take it and put my spin on it with what I understand, and I'm going to share that with you tonight. So let's break it down. Okay, we've talked about this lots of times, and maybe I could kind of show it to you. Maybe I could draw some of it out as we're kind of going through this. But so let's talk about chiropractic and what is important to us from a chiropractic standpoint, right? And let's talk about the brain, the cerebellum, and the spinal cord. Let's just talk about that. And that's the central nervous system. The brain, the cerebellum, that's the brain and the spinal cord is the central nervous system. That's what is the master system of your body. You can find that in any textbook on the planet. You can find out, and you'll learn the central nervous system is the master system of the body. Everything goes through the central nervous system. If you don't believe that, Google Christopher Reeve. That's a great example. Christopher Reeve before he broke his neck, Christopher Reeve after he broke his neck. And you want to know what happens to you when your central nervous system doesn't function properly? That's an extreme case. But you got Superman, that is a 6'3" stud guy. You got Superman that's sitting in a wheelchair, can't move anything. Can't move anything. Can think about it, but he can't move. So the central nervous system is the master system of the body. And the brain is going to regulate everything that goes on in your body. And you know how I feel about the brain, and we've talked about this lots of times. Remember, we talk about this whole up and to the right, over to the left thing of the brain. Well, one of the things one thing that you have is you have some cranial nerves, and your cranial nerves exit off of your brainstem, and they run different parts of your body. Let me see. So your cranial nerves, if we were to look at your brain, so you guys on the radio, we're looking at a picture of a brain that's from the bottom up. We're catching that whole spinal cord area and the brain stem, and we're looking at all the different areas of where these nerves come off and what they actually do for us, right? So you can start up here at cranial nerve 1, and it's the olfactory nerve, and that's where we get our smell. So the cranial nerve 1, the smell, the nose will the receptors in the nose will transfer information to the cranial nerve, and the cranial nerve will now go into the brainstem. And really what Dr. Zucker taught me in these last few days, the whole process of this is for modulation. It's to be able to control things and have multiple areas, multiple shutdown spaces or speed up spaces. It's a little bit like a breaker box in your house. It's a little bit like you're going to bring information from your nose into your brain through the brain stem. The brain stem is now going to relay that information. It's going to come in, and then it's going to end up transferring in through the thalamus, which is our mix master that we've talked about when we talked about trauma, right? And then that information is going to go, and eventually it's going to end up in the part of your brain called your cortex. So you're going to transfer it in through there, through smell, through the brainstem, up into the cortex, and you're going to process that smell. And your brain is going to decide if it's good or bad, if it likes what it smells, if it doesn't like what it smells. And it's going to use your smell in a way to orient you inside your space, to kind of keep you safe, to navigate you through your day. You're going to smell things. You might smell smoke. You might smell not gas. You might not smell gas, but you might smell something that smells rotten, right? Like you might be eating a hamburger, which I did one time. Yeah, I ate a hamburger one time, and I could smell that hamburger smelled really bad while I was eating it, and it was a bad day. I was fussy with my wife and my kids, and they weren't ever get things going when I was hangry back in the day, and so I went and ate by myself, and then I got that hamburger, and it smelled bad, and I thought, well, maybe it's some sort of seasoning that's on the hamburger. Well, it wasn't. It was rotten hamburger, and I ate it, and then I threw up all night long with food poisoning. So I've had that experience before, right? That's what that cranial nerve is going to do for us. That cranial nerve is going to give us the sense of smell be able to regulate it, process it, and set ourselves around through our environment, right? Okay, our optic nerve, our cranial nerve 2, that's the sensory of the eye, right? So then we're going to get into cranial nerve 3, where we start getting into some motor function of our eye, and that cranial nerve 6 does that. The oculomotor nerve, cranial nerve 3, that's that motor nerve around the eye. Cranial nerve 4, same thing. And then cranial nerve 5, you get into, let me hide this just a little bit. There we go. So cranial nerve 5 is your facial nerve. And I mean, your trigeminal nerve, not your facial nerve, your trigeminal nerve. And it has 3 different branches that come around, and it gives information around your eye, around your face, basically, your teeth, all that sort of thing. And you go through facial nerve is motor to the muscles of your face. So now you're going to, and I already got 6 over there with the motor to the eye. That's the lateral rectus. It pulls your eyes to the side. Okay, we go through those. The point of it I'm trying to make is that there's nerves that come off your brainstem that are part of your central nervous system that are giving you sensory and motor information about how to move your face, how to handle your face. And one of these that we get around here to the other side is we get into the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is a very long bundle of nerves. It's actually not just one nerve, according to Dr. Zucker and others, but he does the study. It's more of a bundle of nerves that may have 1,000 fibers in it. And all those fibers are kind of wrapped up in this one giant superhighway of a nerve that is going to innervate all of your organs all the way down. From your brain, it's going to innervate all of your organs all the way down. It's going to innervate your heart, your lungs, your pancreas, your stomach, your small intestine, your intestines, all the way down, almost to the very bottom of your intestines. And it's what the vagus nerve is doing is it's constantly giving information to the brain to tell the brain what is going on with your organ systems. That's what your vagus nerve is doing. Your vagus nerve is reporting to the brain. And one of the things that I want to make, I think is important to make sure, because a lot of people get it confused sometimes, especially with all the social media and things that we have going on in today's world. They get confused and they start thinking that the gut is the place of all healing. And it's like, the gut is super important. We've talked about it a lot. I think we talked about it last night when we were talking about skin. The gut is super important, but the vagus nerve is 80 to 90% afferent, which means it's 80 to 90% going from the body into the brain. That's what the vagus nerve is doing. It's reporting to the brain. Well, I started thinking about that while they were talking, and I was thinking, who do you report to? You report to the boss, right? You don't. The boss doesn't report downstream to the employees. The employees report to the boss. In an organization, I'm not trying to be like, I'm not getting into organization, business, but I'm just saying that if I have to report to somebody, that person probably has a position of authority over me. That's why I'm reporting to them, right? The vagus nerve is 80% to 90% a reporting nerve. It's sending information to the brain so that the brain can modulate and censor and determine what is going on with your entire organ system. Yes, your brain is controlling that, and your brain's only using 10 to 20% of the information through the vagus nerve that comes back down. Now, your brain may use other things, Your brain might use your your sympathetic response system to kick things off. Your brain might try to fire cortisol. Your brain might have to do other things and use other pathways that other than the vagus nerve to change the function of your gut or change the function of your heart or the way that your stomach is working. But it's super important in the way that to understand that you have this vagus nerve, this big bundle of fibers that is coming off your brain stem that is reporting from your organ systems from your body to your brain. It's a big deal when we really start to break down the vagus nerve, and and a lot of people will tell you, yeah, it's your gut. Your gut's the most important thing. You got to get your gut right. You got to get it right. Well, that's true. If all the employees are doing their jobs, the boss doesn't have a whole lot to do. So it's pretty simple from the boss's standpoint. It's easier on the boss when all the employees are doing their jobs. The 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 vagus nerve is reporting what's going on in the stomach. It's reporting what's going on in the intestines. It's reporting on that. And when we get back from the break, I'm going to break that down for you on how it relates to taste and what is so important about sugar. So you guys stick around. We'll be right back right after these messages. So I don't want to get too deep. I want the listeners on the radio station to hear this whole thing. But if you think about that, because and I don't want to say that the gut's not important, but your vagus nerve is reporting back on the status of your heart. It's reporting back on the status of your lungs. It's reporting back on the status of your pancreas and your spleen. Your systems, your organ systems have to be monitored by your brain. If you don't monitor them properly, and you lose that input through that vagus nerve, you can lose control over those organs. If you're not getting the information properly from the heart to the brain. And that's the thing 24 years ago that my brother-in-law told me what a subluxation was. And that he used that concept. He said it a little bit differently, but he used that concept that it's if I have interference between my heart and my brain might not function properly. Yes, that's right. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, so you're telling me that um, that it might not, if it doesn't function properly, and yeah, that I could have some sort of heart problem. Sorry. Yeah, I could have a heart problem. And I said, you're telling me if I have a subluxation that I could have a heart problem? And he said, yes. And it got my attention. It got my attention about, wow, like that's how chiropractic works. After 12 years of getting adjusted and not understanding it, that's what I learned from that. And that's the sentence that basically changed my whole life by understanding that concept right there. Let me get us back on. Okay, everybody, we're back. This is Jason Clemmons. This is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC, and we're talking about the gut-brain axis, and we're talking about the vagus nerve. Okay, so let's get into some of the meat of this concept. Okay, so we've got this. We've talked a lot on the show about how we crave sugar, and we can't seem to break ourselves free from this whole sugar idea, right? And it's some of us are having a harder time with it than others. And the thing that you would want to ask yourself is, does it matter? Does it make any difference? Does it make any difference if I'm healthy or I'm not healthy? Does it make any difference if I control my sugar or I don't control my sugar? And if you can't answer that question for yourself, you're not going to control your sugar. If you don't really believe that that it matters. If you don't really believe that it matters in your life, you're not going to control your sugar. But so there is some steps to this. But let's get back to the brain, and let's get back to taste. And what I learned from Dr. Zucker in this conversation yesterday, a lot of this stuff is what I learned yesterday, so I don't want to keep saying that. But okay, there's five. First of all, your taste buds have all of the receptors, and there's five types of taste that we have. We have sweet, sour, bitter, salty, and what's called umami. It's a Japanese word. It looks like it's umami, umami. And that's basically, it's kind of a brothy or meaty taste, maybe where we taste our amino acids or something like that. Okay. MSG is one of the things that we taste with that type of thing. So sweet, sour, salty, bitter, umami. Those are the five senses that we have in our taste receptors that we have on our tongue. And every single taste bud has about 100 receptors. And every single taste bud has all of those receptors on it. So this old idea that we learned about parts of our tongue where this was the sweet spot of our tongue and this was the sour spot of our tongue and whatnot, that's not true. That was misinterpreted in some sort of mapping issue that went on at some point in time, but it's not factual. What's factual, according to Dr. Zucker, is that we have all of those receptors on our tongue within that taste bud. And what's really interesting is because Dr. Huberman asked him, sometimes I drink like hot coffee and I burn my tongue. And he said, is that permanent damage, or is there anything like, did I change the way I process things or any of that? And he's like, well, you do change the way that your tongue processes food, and you do change the way that your brain receives that information, but it usually resets itself pretty fast, and it takes about 2 weeks. The receptors on the tongue have a lifespan of about 2 weeks. I've known this in the past with the receptors in the gut. That your gut lining is about a 3-day lifespan. So if you have a leaky gut situation, you can solve that leaky gut situation if you do multiple 3 days, like 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 days. That's why a 21-day detox is such a good deal. 7 revolutions of new cells in the gut in order to heal the gut. So the taste buds have a 2-week lifespan. And the reason they have a 2-week lifespan is because your tongue is super important in mapping out your environment. It's super important to keep you up to date. It's almost like an update on your phone that happens every 2 weeks. Like we want to fix all the bugs, and we want to make sure all the virus protection is up, and we want to make sure that the phone is working at its optimal level. And so they're going to give us an update on our phone every 2 weeks. Well, that's kind of what happens with our taste buds. Every 2 weeks, we get an update because we need to stay on top of what's going on around us. We need to stay and make sure and I didn't know that. I didn't know that there was a 2-week lifespan that was there. We also have a thing called valence, and valence is the value of the experience. And when we taste something that is sweet, it has a positive valence because, first of all, we love sweet things, right? But we have 2 areas of our brain. We have 2 areas. No, our tongue is reporting to our brain the things that we have in our mouth. That's what our tongue is doing. And our brain is saying, okay, that's good. That's bad. This is not good. This is, bitter. You put something bitter in your mouth. It's like, yeah. Like you'll start salivating quickly. Just thinking about it. I just did that move right there. Then all of a sudden I got more saliva in my mouth. I got more saliva in my mouth. because that saliva in the mouth is actually an efferent pathway traveling from the brain to the salivary gland. That's a motor pathway to the salivary gland to squeeze the salivary gland to make more saliva inside of our mouth. So that was a quick relay. The bitterness, something that is sour, you can just imagine biting into a lemon, something that is sour is going to relay that information from your tongue, and it's going to relay it into the brain. Now remember, what did we say is important to the brain? What are the three things that we need the brain has to have, right? The three things that the brain has to have: glucose, oxygen, and excitability. C-I-T-I-B-I, if I can spell that right. Okay, glucose, oxygen, and excitability. Those are the three things that the brain has to have in order to function. And you can transfer some things if you're not going to eat anything and you're going to fast. You can transfer some things around there. But the brain. Let's just talk about glucose. The brain is happy on sugar. The brain likes sugar. But let's think about what brain likes sugar. The brain that we have today that lives in the world, that 2024 that we live in today, that brain likes sugar, or the brain that was created thousands of years ago that likes sugar, right? What kind of sugar was there 1,000 years ago? Well, there was some sort of fruit. There was some sort of berry. There was something that was natural, synergistically, right? That was natural, that was that our brain likes. And we have those sweet tastes on our tongue that gives us this information that, hey, woo, I like that. Eat some of that, right? But so that's a starting point from that's why we like that sweet taste, because we like that glucose. And it's not sugar that we like, it's sweet. So it doesn't matter if it's stevia or aspartame or saccharin, sweet and low, equal, all those sort of things. We just taste the sweetness of it, and the sweetness of it is going to relay to our brain that we've got some in there. Okay, but there's another whole part of this thing, because now we talked about we talked about this study where, remember, and this is this magnificent study that you've heard me talk about umpteen times, as they say. All right, we're going to put mice in a cage that has sugar water and regular water. We're going to put mice in a cage, and we're going to put mice in a cage that can taste sweet. So where are those mice going to go? Give them a couple tries. They're going to go 10 out of 11 times. It's almost 100% that the mice are going to go to the sugar water. It's almost 100%. Okay. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's sugar water or if it's aspartame or if it's sweet and low, whatever they're going to do, they're going to go over there to that, right? Okay. But let's just talk about sugar. If you take a set of mice that have been genetically altered to not have any sweet taste inside on their tongue, the receptors for sweet have been eliminated. They cannot taste sweet. And you put the mice inside the cage, what are you going to get? You're going to get 50-50. They're going to go to either water supply, because it doesn't matter. They're just going to eat. They're going to drink from the sugar water or they're going to drink from the regular water, and it doesn't make any difference to them which one they go to. But if you leave those mice in that cage for 48 hours, all it takes is 48 hours, and those mice will almost 100% go back to the sugar water. They will no longer be 50-50 if you leave them in the cage. Now, this is a mouse that cannot taste sweet. So why does he care? Like, why does a mouse that cannot taste sweet go to the sugar water, right? There's something about that sugar water that he likes. There's something about that sugar water that makes him feel good. And and so I've known this, you've heard me talk about this study, and I've known this study for quite some time, but I went back and broke down that that um, that video with Dr. Zucker and Dr. Huberman, and I went back and really analyzed it again, and it's like, wait a minute, how does that mouse know that he likes that sugar water? What is it? What is it that he's getting from there? How does he physically know that? Well, they broke it down for me. Dr. Zucker told me, he explained it to me right there. The reason that he knows that is because we have another area of receptors that's down here in our gut, our intestines. We have another area of receptors that are in our intestines, and they are specific for glucose. And these receptors, because you can have sugar in your mouth, but it doesn't mean anything because you didn't ingest it, and it's not going to make any difference. So, but now we have another whole set of sugar receptors, specifically glucose receptors, not aspartame receptors, not saccharin receptors, not any artificial sweetener receptor. We have a glucose receptor that's in our gut, and that glucose receptor is going to detect in the intestines, not in the stomach, in the intestines where we absorb our nutrients from. That glucose is receptor in the intestine is going to detect that we now have ingested that glucose, and it's going to report back to the brain. It's going to report through the vagus nerve to the brain. It's going to report that we now have glucose in our stomach, in our intestines. We are now absorbing the glucose into our bloodstream, and that is what the brain was wanting, because the brain needs the glucose. The brain is now happy because it's getting that information, and it's coming from the gut. It's coming through the vagus nerve into the brain to tell us that we got glucose. That's going to now translate itself through the brainstem, because the vagus nerve is going to come back in. It's got a specific place that it comes back in. That that information that's traveling into that area is an acetylcholine receptor, nicotinic acetylcholine receptor, that gets wiped out in certain. It gets not wiped out. It gets altered by those acid blockers and those things like Pepsid and all that thing from our stomach, and because it cuts out the choline that we're getting, and it changes the whole way that that's fired in there. That's why I'm not a big fan of those things. It changes the way that we perceive our health, the health of our intestines, when we take those things. But this is coming from the gut. It's coming from the gut, and it's going into the brain, and it's telling the brain, now I'm happy. The brain is like, okay, I'm good. The brain now can calm its craving for the sugar. But that's the natural brain that we had thousands of years ago, right? So that's the system. That's the way that it works. There is your gut brain axis of what's going on right there. And now the question becomes, how do we process the amount of sugar? How much sugar do we need? Not sugar, glucose, which is a sugar molecule is 50% glucose and 50% fructose. Is glucose and fructose. Okay, glucose is used by all the cells of your body. Fructose goes to your liver because it is toxic. White sugar is 50-50, right? But we are getting it from there. But that's what you get. But when you get fructose in nature from an apple, you get lots and lots of fiber that goes along with it. And so you get just a slow timed release if you're eating a good solid berries and fruits, you're getting a slow timed release sugar input into the brain and not this massive sugar input into the brain with some sort of processed sugar product. And because now we send that massive amount of sugar into the brain does not like to be treated that way, and it does not like to be talked to that way. And what we will end up with is we'll end up with down regulation of the neurotransmitters, which we know by watching this show is mostly dopamine. We'll get a down regulation of the dopamine. And so now we need more sugar to fire that same pathway to give us that same feeling. The other important thing that we need to understand from that is how Diet Cokes and diet drinks and anything that has aspartame and Splenda and any of those things like that, they do not curb our craving to eat, nor do they curb our craving for sugar, because the molecules in the gut are not responsive to those substances. So we won't change the way that we process our sugar. Okay, so that right there, I wanted to talk about that. Now I want to play. I've got a little bit of time, and I want to play just a portion of this conversation that was between. And I want you to hear. I want you to hear what Dr. Zucker says. And I don't. He has no idea that I'm a chiropractor in Lubbock, Texas, and I'm listening to his show. But I want you to hear what he's about to say right here as they're talking about. This. So I'm hoping it'll come through loud and clear for everyone.
Now, over the past, I don't know, dozen years, and with great force over the last 5 years. Now, the main highway that is communicating the state of the body with the brain, it has been uncovered as being what we now refer to as the gut-brain axis. And the highway is a specific bundle of nerves, which emerge from the vagal ganglia, the nodus ganglia. And so it's the vagus nerve that it's innervating the majority of the organs in your body. It's monitoring their function, sending a signal to the brain, and now the brain going back down and saying, this is going all right, do this, or this is not going so well, do that. And I should point out, as you well know, every organ, spleen, pancreas, lungs, they all must be monitored. In fact, I have no doubt that diseases that we have normally associated with metabolism, physiology, and even immunity are likely to emerge as diseases, conditions, states of the brain. I don't think obesity is a disease of metabolism. I believe obesity is a disease of brain circuits. I do as well. Yeah,
So like, I hope you guys could hear that. Like, I hope you heard what Dr. Zucker just said. Like that obesity and things that we have thought for all of these years are problems down below. All of these disease processes that we have all that for years have said are going on down here when it comes to our organ, our heart, our spleen, our lungs, our stomach, our intestines, all of our organs, right? Our liver, that are diseases of abnormal circuitry in the brain. That's what Dr. Zucker believes, and so does Dr. Huberman. Both of those guys who study the brain and study how important it is, like they both explain that to us, right? Which let me go back and say, like, okay, so what does that mean for us? And on this show, when we talk about wellness, right? Because we that's all we talk about is wellness. And then I get fussy every once in a while about some other things. But for the majority of the time, what we're talking about is wellness. And it's like, how's your liver doing? Well, how's your brain doing? And what did I say multiple times on the show is that those processes are secondary to what's happening in your brain. Your brain first, then your body second. If your brain is not firing properly, then your body's not going to work properly. Obesity is a disruption in brain circuits, according to Dr. Zucker. And he's trying to be calm about that. He's not making some big, giant, bold statement to the world. And I'm not trying to do that for him. I'm just simply saying that the care of the central nervous system is the foundational premise of the chiropractic profession. The subluxation is the interference in the central nervous system, the brain and the spinal cord. And we've got the peripheral nerves now that run the rest of the system as well. It's interference in the system. It's the subluxation is the interference in the communication pathway between the body and the brain. And it's not just a musculoskeletal problem. It's not just a back pain, neck pain thing. Getting adjusted is not just about your back pain or your neck pain. It is partially about that, just like the book of John is partially about the whole Bible. It's not the whole Bible. It's just part of the Bible. But the whole picture is going through your nervous system. And if you have interference in your nervous system, then your body is not going to function properly. And every single thing that goes on in your body might be related to your nervous system. It might be related to how healthy your brain is. And in our pursuit in our office, and my friends' pursuits, and these guys' pursuits, is to try to figure out. One of the things that is disheartening about this is they get towards the end of the conversation, they get into this conversation about, well, once we learn how all these systems work, we might be able to manipulate that receptor in the gut to tell the brain that there's sugar there so that we can now help have the person have a healthier life. But what is underlying about that is pharmaceuticals. That there's some sort of pill that I can take. That's the whole Ozempic thing that's going on, right? Let's take a shot so that we can regulate the way that our stomach is working, and then we can feed that back to our brain, and we can tell our brain that everything is right. And you think that the intelligence of the universe is not going to know that that's not true? Like you don't think that the central nervous system is not going to say something's fishy right here. I'm not buying this at all, because the taste receptors of the food that they just ate is not matching what I'm getting in the stomach. And so there's something off between these two things. I can just eat what I want to eat, and I don't have to worry about it because I'm using some sort of pharmaceutical to block the system that's going on below. And it's like, hold up, like I'm not buying that whole thing, and I'm not trying to get off on that. I think that if we really understood it, and we would work on our brain first, we would work on making sure that our brain is functioning properly, that we are getting the nutrients that we need for our brain, we are getting the activation that we need, we're getting the excitability, which means the movement, we are getting the exercise, we are getting the fatty acids that we need in our brain to make our liver work better, to make our stomach, our intestine, to make our spleen work better, and that it's vitally important that it does that. So I hope that was helpful. I don't think we messed that up too bad. I think that was pretty good shot at what was going on. If you guys want to go catch the video, I would highly recommend that you do that. And otherwise, I hope you guys have a great evening. That's the end of our show for tonight. We will be back tomorrow night at 6 o'clock with Life with Jason Clemmons, DC, right here on social media, multiple pages, and on 98.7 Walk by Faith Radio and 1420 AM Lubbock Christian Nation. I hope you guys have a fantastic night. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them for me. I'd be glad to answer them. See you guys tomorrow.